Call us to order. Good evening and welcome to the Wednesday, July 6th, 2022 meeting of the Ann Arbor City Planning Commission. The meeting tonight is broadcast on CTN Channel 16, AT&T Channel 99, and online at a2gov.org/watchctn. And we'll be taking comments both virtually and in person. You can see the agenda for tonight published on the city's website. All right, Mr. Leonard, could you help with the calling the roll?
Absolutely. Commissioner Mills.
Here.
Commissioner Gibb-Randall.
Here.
Commissioner Sauvé. Commissioner Abrams. Commissioner Hammerschmidt.
Here.
Commissioner Dish.
Here.
Commissioner Lee. Commissioner Clark.
Here.
Commissioner Weich.
Here.
We have a quorum by the hair of our chinny chin chin.
All right, this is what happens in July. Item 3 is approval of the agenda. Could I have a commissioner move the agenda? Moved by Commissioner Gibb-Randall, seconded by Commissioner Weich. Any discussion of the agenda? Mr. Leonard.
You do not have the minutes for your review, so I would suggest removing that item.
All right, very good. Any other changes? All right, all in favor of the agenda as amended, please raise your hand and say yes. That is, or say yes, that's everybody. So we're going to skip item 4, the minutes of the previous meeting, and move on to the reports from city administration, city council, the planning manager, and any officers or committee liaisons. We did have a number of written petitions or of written communications in tonight's packet, many of which, or I think all of which were shared with ORC last week. But let's start with Commissioner Dish. Do you have anything to report from City Council?
Indeed, I do. Last night, City Council approved the rezoning of Gettys, and it approved 2 of the 5 text amendments that we have signed off on, one being the religious uses in the light industrial district, and the other being the adjustment of the minimum lot width and area in order to actually enable R2A zoning to be a practical and legal zoning designation. Based on some comments we heard last night, I think there was a confusion that we were engaged in some kind of rezoning, and I feel bad about that because I tried to explain as best I could, and it didn't occur to me to say, this is not a rezoning. This is an adjustment of the minimum lot size requirements so that the rezoning can actually have an effect on what gets produced on those lots. So that was last night. I was really excited that we were able to bring that to fruition.
Very good. Mr. Leonard.
That was first reading last night on those 2 agendas.
Yeah.
So it was approved at first reading, but that'll return to City Council for a second reading and a public hearing. The only other tangentially related planning item is that a proposed Brownfield plan for the Detroit 5th Street development that was recently approved for site plan was recommended for approval by the City Council. That now progresses to Washtenaw County for full consideration.
You referenced 2 of 5.
Yeah.
So what happened to the other 3?
I just think they're not, sorry.
Yeah, they are
Trickling.
scheduled to appear for first reading on the July 18th.
So they were just
Council agenda.
separated out?
Yep.
Okay, great.
So I'm delighted that I always make the mistake about first and second reading, and so I'm delighted to know that I'll have a chance to make it really clear one more time.
Very good. Any other commission officers or committee liaisons have anything to report out? I'll report for ORC that we did meet last week and we discussed the TC1 West Stadium kind of extents of the proposed rezoning and whether to split this into 2 different, to alter kind of what might be proposed. What ORC recommended get brought before us, again, we didn't vote, but what we're expected, or what we may likely see is kind of the full extent and everything being TC1. So, yeah.
Just a question on that, process-wise,
how is that, because there were a lot of communications. Yeah, I mean, a lot of them. And so I'm just wondering, are there other forums during which we can continue to discuss this? Or are you envisioning that it's kind of like fully formed and we're voting on it? Just give me a sense of what you all see as how that's going to work.
Sure, I'm happy to start. And then, we undertook the citizen participation engagement opportunity. We held 2 meetings. We actually held one in-person meeting and one virtual meeting. That was the one that was aligned with one of the Planning Commission's working sessions. After that, staff had some questions and some, I guess, an alternative perspective on it. We talked that through with the Ordinance Revisions Committee. The committee didn't validate those. So the next step is staff will be presenting a full rezoning petition. The conversation will next evolve to the scheduled public hearing for that rezoning here at this agenda or at your table. So the question will be the extent of that public hearing if the Planning Commission comes to a decision at the first meeting or if that's continued in any way. But the next phase of that will be the formal scheduled public hearing. Then if it progresses to City Council, a second public hearing would be also held at the second reading for that rezoning.
So there will still be room for dialogue
Yep.
amongst ourselves, not just kind of public hearing.
Correct.
but,
Yep.
I mean, obviously, that's super important.
Yeah, at that point,
as
though,
well.
you'll be responding to the formal defined petition.
Okay.
In what we hope is as close to a final form. And then, yeah, absolutely, that's going to be your dialogue and deliberation as to whether that's right, should be modified, how and if it should progress to the City Council.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And the guidance or kind of the gut check that ORC gave was just what should be brought before us for that public hearing, like what should be the starting point for that conversation. And so that's where we suggested just bringing what we saw and then we can discuss that.
Okay.
So yeah, there's still lots of opportunity for public engagement, but also talking amongst us. But this is our opportunity for the entire Planning Commission to weigh in rather than,
Yep.
yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, any other committee liaisons? Okay, next up then is public comment, item number 6. This is an opportunity for persons to speak for up to 3 minutes about an issue that's not listed as a public hearing on the agenda, and we don't have any public hearings, so you can speak about anything. We'll first call on folks who are present in council chambers and then remote participants to speak during the public comment period remotely. Please press star 9 if you're listening by phone or use the raised hand feature if you're viewing through the web link. And if you're watching us now and need to dial in, the call-in number is 877-853-5247, and our meeting ID is 977-6634-1226. Mr. Leonard will select callers that have raised their hands, calling on you by the last 3 digits of your telephone number or your Zoom name. Please move to a quiet area and mute any background sounds so that we can hear you clearly. And whether you participate in person or online, please state your name and address at the beginning of your comments. Mr. Garber, would you like to participate?
Yes, of course. Thank you, Chair Mills. Ken Garber, 28 Haverhill Court. Nice to see everyone. You may have seen the banners for next Friday's Electrification Expo at the Farmers Market. People can meet with experts on heat pumps, electric water heaters, and induction stovetops. The 820 plan calls for 30% of single-family homes to be all electric by 2030 and 25% of rentals. It'll be expensive to retrofit. For a ductless or mini-split system, extending heads to every room and pulling out the existing ducts, you're talking at least $30,000, I've been told. But we've got to do it. Now, new construction is totally different. Minimal extra costs there. 820 assumes that, quote, all new residential and commercial buildings are designed and built to operate without the use of natural gas, end quote. On this, we have failed. Since June 1st, 2020, when Council adopted 820, we've approved 275,000 square feet of new commercial space, 346,000 square feet of new hotel space, and 487 residential units that burn gas. When finished, They will emit 14,100 metric tons of CO2 equivalent emissions annually for decades to come. That's a 5% increase on our citywide building source gas emissions. We can debate the reasons, but let's acknowledge the failure. On the plus side, we have the all-electric projects, Valhalla Glen, Lockwood, 2111 Packard, and Viridian. The first two only because this commission insisted. I vividly remember your June 2nd, 2020 meeting, the very night after the council 820 vote, when you told the Valhalla team that you would not settle for LEED silver, solar panels, and green roofs. They had to go all electric. Commissioner Gib Randall and Council Rep Zach Ackerman especially made this very clear. The vote was postponed, and at the next meeting, Valhalla said they'd do it. I was thrilled. You were my climate heroes. Fast forward to July 19th, 13 days from now. The Village of Ann Arbor site plan and rezoning. Roughly 500 homes on 65 acres. A gas-burning village will emit another 6,400 metric tons a year. Robertson Brothers knows about 820. What I expect to hear is what we've been hearing from others. We're looking at that option, but it's too soon to make a commitment. We'll know when we get more into the project. We're studying it. Or my favorite from last month, couldn't do the engineering because they weren't sure of approval. Expect some similar dodge 2 weeks from now, but don't buy it. You're still my climate heroes. Please hold the line on this. It's not a by right project. You have full discretion on the rezoning. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Leonard, is there anyone online?
There is not.
All right, then we're on to item 7, the public hearings at the next regular meeting.
We have one new public hearing scheduled for the next regular meeting on July 19th, 2022 at 7 o'clock. The Village of Ann Arbor site plan and rezoning to R4A multiple family dwelling zoning for city council approval. Petitioner proposes to construct 561 dwelling units on approximately 65 acres at 1680 Duvarin. Units include owner-occupied and rental units. Access is proposed from Pontiac Trail, Duvarin Road, and Leslie Park. Stormwater detention is proposed on site. The project includes a wetland use permit for a .03 acre of wetland impact. Construction is currently proposed to take place in 2 phases.
All right. We have no regular business tonight, so we will move to 9A, which is the election of officers. Mr. Leonard, thank you for preparing all of the information together for this evening's kind of business meeting. Do you want to walk us through it, or?
Sure, I'm happy to. There are 3 agenda items before you. They are our business meeting. Before I start, I would like to thank the commission. This is traditionally done at the first regular meeting in July after the first. Typically, we wouldn't place this alone and occupy your evening, but I do anticipate we've got a couple of upcoming agendas that are going to be pretty robust, and so that was the basis for this, so I really appreciate it. Those 3 items are, they comprise what we often call our business meeting, is the election of officers. This is the election of the chair, vice chair, and secretary. I've tried to summarize in short. The chair runs the meeting, the vice chair runs the meeting when the chair isn't there, and the secretary runs the meeting when the vice chair and chair aren't there.
And sometimes gets to sign things.
And sometimes gets to sign things. The chairs cannot occupy that office more than 2 consecutive terms. Our current slate of officers has done that. Commissioner Mills as chair, Commissioner Gibrandal as vice chair, and Commissioner Abrams as secretary. So we need some new faces in those roles. The process is pretty simple. It is a nomination. They can be made individually. They can be made by a slate. And if there is if there are multiple nominations, then we would take a vote never mind, it's probably not going to happen. So you can vote on each position individually, or you can consider a slate of those positions. So that's the first item. The second item is bylaws affirmation. On an annual basis, the bylaws call for a review of the document itself. You have recently approved revised bylaws, which have also been approved by City Council. They are fresh and cool and up to date from staff's perspective, so we are not proposing any changes. However, I've presented two proposed actions for you to consider. One is an affirmation, and one would be a proposal of changes. If changes are proposed, we would identify those changes. I would take them, review them with city staff, city attorney's office, and then we would present them back for your consideration at a future meeting. And then finally, after numerous starts and stops, I'm hoping to adopt the updated committee structure table, which has been attached as well.
All right.
And just, I would just say one more thing, Chair Mills, particularly thank you so much for your service over these last 2 years. Your leadership, your knowledge, your calmness in the face of controversy at times has been greatly appreciated. Every time we have a chair, I think that they set the bar high, and I think you are no different. So thank you for making my job certainly quite easy over the last couple of years.
Oh, well, thank you all for putting up with me. And I realize, like, it's the move from online to in person too. That's been fun. And thanks for riding along. There is no manual, by the way, like, that I can hand off, or secret handshake. It's, yeah. There is a gavel that I didn't even bang today.
And then one last piece of information. We do have a couple of absent commissioners, which is very dangerous at a time when we are electing officers and committees. I have heard from Commissioner Sauvé and Commissioner Abrams that they are willing to serve if nominated for officer roles. I have not heard from Commissioner Lee, but hey, he's not here.
Would anyone like to start the nomination process? If I will, historically,
Yep.
often the slate kind of ratchets up. And so I think I will start by nominating Commissioner Gibrandel for chair, Commissioner Abrams for vice chair, and unless someone else votes in, I would say Commissioner Sauvé for secretary. Any other nominations? We can vote. Doesn't have to be just that. That was just a starting point.
All right, so Commissioner Gibrandel is nominated as chair, Commissioner Abrams is nominated as vice chair, and Commissioner Sauvé nominated as secretary. If there are not any other nominations, a simple roll call, or not a roll call vote, a simple
Voice vote.
If you determine, if you chair determine a roll call vote is necessary, we can go to that, but it
Okay.
doesn't have to be.
Anybody else really want to read the script? All right, seeing no other nominations, I think that we can have just a voice vote. So all in favor of that slate, please raise your hand or say yes. I see the 6 hands here. I think I am done. Would you like to chair the rest of this meeting, or? Oh, for old time's sake. All right, sounds good. Then.
That is for a 1-year term. So.
We will be temporarily then bypassing what our bylaws say, which is that once the election is done, it is handed over. I don't think we technically need to change the bylaws for that, but any changes, I love that we get to read through the bylaws once a year and see if it all is still making sense. And I really like the changes that we made last year, so I am cool with affirming them unless anyone else saw in reading through them something that gives them pause. Okay. I'm going to read the motion, and then maybe somebody wants to move it. I move to affirm that the City Planning Commission bylaws are appropriate in their current form and require no amendment at this time. Moved by Commissioner Hammerschmidt, seconded by Commissioner Weich. Any other discussion? Can we just vote with hands? All in favor, please say yes or raise a hand. That is all the hands. And finally, the committee appointments. So the executive committee boxes will be shaded in now. In reviewing the list of subcommittees, any thoughts on trading that needs to happen or that would like to happen?
I noticed that our questions about representation on the other committees have been answered, and I cannot serve two roles on the center of the city, but I could represent in Planning Commission at Environmental Commission if Commissioner Gibrandl doesn't want to do that. I would miss your expertise on the Environmental Commission, but I'm just going to say that, but I would be happy to, if you need relief, I would be happy to at least say what planning is up to, but I will never be able to speak about bushes. Or trees.
I'm willing to serve for another year on that, so. You don't have to speak about bushes and trees. thank you.
So the only changes I am hearing is, like, as noted, Commissioners Abrams, Gibrandl, and Sauvé would be added to the executive committee, which never meets. But it's helpful if it's ever needed. Just as a reminder for the commission, that is purely an administrative board. It's an opportunity that if the commission wants to have a conversation with me about things like structure or reorganizing our meetings or the number of petitions that are or not being put on agendas, that's a great committee to sort of talk about those logistical items. So, but I always take silence as being golden. The Master Plan Review Committee will, shortly after adoption, we're going to get that scheduled. I want to start working on drafting a request for proposals for our RFP. The Ordinance Revisions Committee obviously is well established, and with the conversation here, we would not have any changes to the center of the city or Environmental Commission representation.
Commissioner Hammerschmidt, I know when we talked before.
I'll be fine.
You'll be fine?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Just want to make sure.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. Anybody give some thought to whether or not they wanted to be a light blue on Zoning Board of Appeals? Commissioner Clark? Great. So if there's a space on ZBA, that would be excellent to have cross-commission involvement. Thank you, Commissioner Clark. Any other changes? I can also put Commissioner Lee and Commissioner Abrams, Commissioner Sauvé on. Maybe you should switch out one of your. All right, Mr. Leonard, is there anything else then on this? Then we should vote on, do we need to vote on this?
Yes, please.
Okay, so let's see if there's a motion. I move the commissioner appointments reflected on the attachment and as modified during the discussion be approved. That's moved by Commissioner Dish, seconded by Commissioner Clark. Any other discussion? All in favor, please raise a hand or say yes. That's all the hands. Okay. Well, we quickly made it through 9A, B, and C, so we're on to public comment. This is the final opportunity for persons to speak for up to 3 minutes about any issue. Again, we'll start in council chambers and then move online. If you are watching us now and still need to dial in, the call-in number is 877-853-5247, and our meeting ID is 977-6634-1226. Once you dial in, again, you press *9 on your phone to digitally raise your hand. If you've joined through the Zoom link, you can just push the raise hand button. Anyone else like to provide a comment?
Thank you, Ken Garber again. Chair Mills, you're stepping down as chair, but are you leaving the planning commission
No.
entirely? Okay.
My commitment, yes, it still goes on.
Oh, what a relief. So I was going to thank you on behalf of the public for your dedicated service, but it's obviously premature. But since I'm here, thank you, and thank you for 3.5 years of listening to my demented rants here at the podium with good humor and patience. And I look forward to Commissioner Gibb Randall serving as chair. I know she'll be great. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Anyone online, Mr. Leonard?
There's not.
All right. We're on to 11 then, commission proposed business. Is there any?
This is a great opportunity.
I did tell a kid that we probably would be done by 7:30. So with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Commissioner Gibb Randall, seconded by Commissioner Hammerschmidt. All in favor? That is all of the hands. Thank you, folks.
Can I just
Thank
add one
you.
more quick thing?
Yeah.
I'm going to be emailing all of you a conflict of interest form that I'm going to ask that you return. That is part of the business meeting. It's not an action, but it's just an opportunity for you to update any potential conflict of interest so we can make sure we're tracking that if it's related to any petitions going forward. Still done within 7:30.
Thank you very much. For the last time.